Well, this podcast is a safe space for people that are politically incorrect. So if you want to go that way, don't worry. You can just pretend you are on a stage. We are all about wit and sarcasm here. So it's up to you to pick your character. And I would like to ask you, now that you're talking about talking wild and tell things that people don't want to hear, what are the challenges of doing stand-up comedy in these sensitive and sanitized times?
Well, I think it depends on a lot of things, because what I do is I do stand-up comedy in English for non-native speaker audience.
And
So
that's not a
when
joke. People know he's talking serious.
yeah, I'm talking serious, and this is a challenge itself, because we never know what they understand. You never the reference they have. Sometimes you don't even know if they speak English, and then you see like some people like shaking their head and ask if they speak English. No, so, what are you doing here? Like, I mean, I was telling some of my friends, when we sell the tickets, we should like say, what's your English level, because sometimes like for a comedian, it's like, okay, the person is not laughing, maybe it's not funny, but sometimes you find out that the person just does not speak English.
Maybe they just pop in to learn English. Maybe they use it
Maybe
as an exercise. I'm not joking. Like, it's a way to learn a language, is to be on a stand-up comedy club. Why not?
Yeah, a friend of mine has been doing a lot. Has been going very often to stand-up comedy, also to improve her English, to find this international environment where people speak English. So yeah, it can be also a very good place for people to find English speakers wherever they live. So yeah, I think that these are the biggest challenges of doing comedy in English. We don't share, because if I do comedy in Polish, that's what I want to start doing for Polish people. We share the same references. I can talk about anything about Poland that they will understand. While if I do that in English for people from different countries, I never know what they understand. And I never know if people who are there, they live in Poland or they are tourists that they just went to an open mic or to a showcase. So it's a question that we have no idea, and it also changes how we approach comedy, and different cultures have also different approaches to comedy, different styles that they like. For example, I believe that in Ireland, people like very much this very, how can I describe the British humor, but it's a little bit politically incorrect, right? The British humor. A little bit can be sometimes dark, a little bit sour. While Polish humor, I still feel that Polish stand-up, they before getting used to stand-up comedy, they were already consuming a lot of cabaret, and they like a little bit more of this stand-up comedy where you are acting, you are moving a lot on stage. So, and the references are different when it comes to comedy as well. And for example, Polish people, especially in English, I would say they don't understand very much PC. I would say, while in other countries like in Germany, I think that it's much bigger. So you need to be more careful about what you say. I believe, according to my experience. While like on the other hand, in Scandinavia, it's very similar thing to England or to Ireland. They understand that you are there on stage and it's just a joke. It's not part of reality. So the perception they have of comedy is different as well, according to my experience.
Yeah. So I lived in Poland for a year. I spent 6 months in Katowice, another 6 months in Krakow. And my opinion of Poles when it comes to humor is that, yeah, it's true that they are not the funniest population in the planet, but they are not as gray as we tend to think, or at least as we are told. So the truth, as usual, is somewhere in between. Like, people have a great sense of humor over there. There are a lot of people who are good fun. They exist. Maybe in a smaller percentage than in Ireland or in England, or I don't know, in other parts of the world. But they have their sense of humor. Just need to spend some time with them and understand what the jokes are about. Maybe it's not your type. That's fine. Talk to the people out there. maybe you don't connect to the way they make humor, but they do have humor. Like every culture have their own humor. So you are now doing in Poland, but also you, I think, went to Denmark, Lithuania, and a couple of other places, and you always do it in English, right? So is it something that you adjust wherever you go? And actually, how do you approach scripts? That just come to my mind. You have something, you have a roadmap, or you just do it on the spot?
No, I usually plan what I'm gonna do, because I depend if it's a showcase or an open mic. I know how much time I have, and I try to think in advance what I can know from the audience. So I went to Lithuania, for example, and I thought about, okay, I want to bring some jokes about Lithuania, and I imagine that the majority would be Lithuanians, would be of the Lithuanians, and it wasn't, but there were a lot of Lithuanians still. So I prepared some jokes about Lithuania, about Latvia, about Poland, Belarus, things that they would understand. So I try to think a little bit in advance about what kind of things they understand. So before the open mics and the showcase, I was paying attention to the country, talking to people about some culture, some stereotypes, and things that I could use to create jokes.
Is a stereotype still something that we can use? Because for some people it's awful, like you are just making a generalization that everyone is the same. But it seems that in humor it's still a valid element.
Yeah, sure. I think because people understand that in most cases, it's just comedy, that you are not talking serious. Now, recently I made a joke in Lithuania that I even published that, and I say that, I live in Poland, and please be patient with me because I'm not used to performing in front of friendly people. That's just a joke, but Polish people like that, and I receive good feedback from Polish people because of this joke. And they know that I'm not talking seriously, that I find that Polish people are not friendly. It's just a little bit of the stereotype that some people come here and they have not the best experience with them. And that's it. It's just the stereotype, and they understand. And I was very happy with the fact that they understood and they were not mad at me. So yeah, I think it depends a little bit on what you're talking and the culture. Sometimes people understand. Our Portuguese people, I joke a lot of Portugal, and I would say the only thing that Portuguese people usually don't like, the kind of jokes that they usually don't like, is when I compare Portugal with Spain, or I call Portugal Western Spain. That's usually the only thing that I would say no.
Western should be a compliment, because in Europe we have this preconception that everything Western is better, or it's more developed. No, I mean that's still very much in people's minds, that the Western part of Europe is ahead of the Eastern part. It's not exactly like that. Nowadays, it was say like 10-15 years ago, but this is still present. So if you tell to a Portuguese person that Western Spain, they would think it's wealthy Spain.
Well, I think that many countries, they have that. If they have like a bigger country close to them, sometimes they are like tired of being compared, like Poles and Russians, for example. And I think Portugal, Spain, a little bit of that as well, or maybe Belgium and France.
Ireland and England.
Yeah. So that they have a little bit of this complex, and sometimes they just don't like these jokes. And I understand, but it's just a joke. Also, with the fact that sometimes when I say this joke, I'm joking more with the fact that people here sometimes don't know that Portugal speaks Portuguese, than actually the fact that Portugal is a province of Spain. I'm Portuguese, so for me it's obvious that I know that.
I also lived in Hungary, and I remember asking the Hungarians, where does Eastern European start? So it wasn't asked, you can relate to that as someone living in Poland. And I'm sure the Polish also have a funny answer. So this was a question that myself and my best friend back then, when I lived in Budapest, he was a Spanish guy. And we asked the Hungarians, so can you tell us, like, where is the exact border between West and East? First, they say they are Central Europe. Okay, fine. You are Central Europe, you can take it. No problem. We're not going to dispute that. But where does East starts? And they all say Romania, because the Hungarians don't like much the Romanians, and vice versa. And my Spanish friend joked immediately, saying, "Okay, so then from me, Western Europe starts in Portugal." Based on that conception. So it's funny how they do it. But another interesting thing that I believe that you guys have, you comedians, I think you have a what I would call a license. So when you are on stage, you are able to say things that we are not, or we can, but we are going to pay a price for it. Like you could joke about the Polish people return to Poland, and we are having this podcast from your home, not from a hospital. So they didn't take it that seriously.
Yeah, that's true. But also, when you have the microphone and you're on stage, you also have some responsibilities about the message you're transmitting, the things you're saying. Sometimes you want to make a joke that is a little bit edgy in your mind, but actually the joke ends up being crossing the line, and you are taking this risk. And not always people understand that the comedian is taking this risk, and sometimes can make this mistake, can cross the line, but it's not the intention. So yeah, I think that sometimes, because we create sometimes a character, some comedians do a character, or we create the environment for comedy, we can say things that usually people cannot in different environments. But on the other hand, we have a bigger responsibility transmitting some message, because people are paying attention. And I believe that when I'm transmitting a certain message through a joke, using a joke as a tool to transmit something, people observe it without noticing that they are observing it. And I'm responsible for shaping a little bit the idea of whatever they think. So I think, on the other hand, we also should be a little bit careful with what you say, depending on what it is, to not spread misinformation. Depending on, if you want to sometimes say a joke that you want to show a fact as a premise, and then you are going to joke about it. If this fact is wrong in a way that can be like a prejudice towards someone, and then you might be able to, you might have to apologize later, or stop doing this joke. Even if you think the joke is great, sometimes, look, this joke has no space here, should stop doing that. So yeah, I think that is a little bit both sides.
But that is afterwards. So for those occasions when you, let's say, cross the line, or you make a joke that people don't relate to, in other words, when you fuck it up, how do you get back on track during the event?
No, we usually plan, for example, if it's an open mic and you are testing jokes that you have never done before, some tips that some comedians, experienced comedians, they give is to have a strong opener and strong closing. So in the middle, in between, you can test things. So that what's in the beginning and what's in the end is gonna work, and that's the first and the last impression are still good about you. So if you know that what you wanted to test didn't work, you know that what's gonna come at the end of the set is gonna work, because it's something that you already tested and it works. So of course, sometimes something that usually works doesn't work for whatever reason, but it's part of the day, the context, the way you delivered, or how warmed up was the audience. There are a lot of factors, and well, we have some good days, we have some bad days, and that's it. Then we are aware of that.